Avast ye swabs, it is time to once again hoist my non-existent black flag, but that is on its way to me as we speak, because Cobalt Press is nothing if not listening to what fans say or creators. And yes, there is, I have like a 2 foot by 3 foot Cobalt Press black flag on its way to me. So hopefully by this coming Friday's video, I will have a flag to wave. That being said, if you are in the know on what's going on with Cobalt Press's Black Flag Playtest, you will know that you got an email today that gives you Playtest Packet 1. Yes, it is time to review the first playtest for Cobalt Press Project Black Flag. As would be expected, you have a PDF to download in that email, and there's also a feedback form available. I'm not going to look into it yet because I haven't even read it. We're going to read it for the first time here in this video. They said game design is an ongoing process. Take the time to review playtest packet number 1 over the next few weeks, and then you have until 11:59 p.m. Pacific on Monday, February 27th to share your insights and feedback. Playtest feedback for Heritage and Talents will close on February 28th as we prepare for playtest packet 2 in March 2023. You can also join the Cobalt Press Discord if you would like as well to talk more about it. So, let's go ahead and open up that PDF that you see in front of me here. Playtest packet number 1. How to use this packet. 12 pages too, by the way. Thank you for your interest in playtesting the material contained within Playtest Packet 1 of the Core Fantasy System. Again, Core Fantasy System is in brackets because we don't technically know what the final product name is. Not saying that they're asking for suggestions, but if you have good suggestions, the folks at Cobalt Press do check out these videos. Leave suggestions what you think the possible final product could be called in the description. Again, they might already have something that they're keeping close to the chest that we're not going to know about, but this is an opportunity for you to give it a shot, so go ahead. The Core Fantasy System is backwards compatible with 5th edition and can be used in conjunction with any 5e existing material. Since this document does not include class options, which will start rolling out in Playtest Packet 2, creating a complete character from scratch using this rules found in the packet will require you to use an existing 5e base class. So that being said, if you would like to make a 5e character of equivalent power to a core fantasy character, simply give the 5e character a feat that character would meet the prerequisites for at first level. The optional 5e feat rolls can be found in the system reference document 5.1. Alternatively, you can give the character access to one of the talents described in this packet. In terms of mechanical power, any of 5th edition's quote race and quote sub-race combinations can be substituted for any of the Core Fantasy System's lineage and heritage combinations. Introduction. Welcome to the Labyrinth, a fantastical universe of infinite worlds linked by twisting corridors of magic. Here you'll find realms like Midgard, Hades, the Dreadful Domains, and homebrew creations tied together by the mysterious will of the maze. These countless worlds rarely reassemble one another on the surface. Reassemble one another on the surface. But all have one unifying truth. Heroes shape them. What is core fantasy role-playing? Is an action-oriented role-playing game that pits a group of heroic adventurers against the myriad of dangers found in fantasy worlds. Through collaborative storytelling, one player called the Game Master or GM and a group of players called PCs, player characters or PCs, will explore unique locations and embark upon adventurous quests within them. A role-playing game is... I'm sorry, let me just check that. There we go. A role-playing game, RPG is blah, blah, blah. We don't need to talk about this. We kind of know all of that. We know what a player character is. We know what a game master is. We just double-checking. It is your standard fantasy dice, D4, D6, D8, 2D10, a D10, doesn't say 2, a D12, and a D20. Nothing out of the ordinary there. Okay, other tools you'll need to play. You'll need the Core Fantasy Role-Playing Monster Vault and the Core Fantasy Role-Playing Game Master Guide. Again, these will be things that will happen when it's officially complete. You'll have basically a core trio of books that you would expect for a game like this. What's in this book? Again, the basic information needed to play the core fantasy game. It provides instructions. So this is essentially like the first couple pages of what the player book will ultimately be. 1 is character creation, 2 playing the game, 3 equipment and magic items, 4 spellcasting. Again, we're basically just getting the intro bit here. Core fantasy in a nutshell is intended to be flexible, so it doesn't assume a standard setting. These rules are compatible with any published setting or unique worlds designed for your table. However, they assume the setting you adopt is rooted in the fantasy genre. Elements of core fantasy. Fantasy worlds have magic. The presence of magic is the core principle of fantasy genre. Your setting might have a unique spin on how magic works, but it should be present in some way, and the players should have access to it. Heroic adventures. Fantastic story, or fantasy stories are about heroes. The heroes in this case, the PCs, need to be the focus of the stories. They need plenty of opportunities to defeat foes, make important decisions, and solve various other problems within their actions, or with their actions rather. Unique locations to explore, right? This is pretty much the pillars of a fantasy thing. And then power structures and systems, whether through villainous empires or friendly guild factions. Fantasy stories include larger organizations that can challenge or push the heroes to grow their abilities. And then again, some form of conflict, because you have to resolve the conflict as you play the game. All right, character creation. Step-by-step character creation. Create a character concept. So we're getting a little bit of an idea of how Kobold Press is having you design this, right? Before you choose any game options, spend time thinking about the heroic character you'd like to play. Okay, pretty standard stuff. During this brainstorming phase, talk to the other players about your concept and ideas. Hearing what other players have in mind for their characters can help narrow down your options or inspire you to create a concept that works well with adventurers in your party. For example, if all the PACs are creating rough and tumble warriors, it might be the perfect move for you to make a cleric so you can patch them up with healing magic. Pretty standard stuff. Second is choose a class. Once you've decided on a character concept, you will likely have a good idea of the types of things you want your character to do during gameplay. Choosing your character's class is the most important factor in bringing those ideas to life. Every adventure has a character class. Your class gives you class features at first level and a list of other things. Your choice of character also dictates your proficiencies, which is the game describing the kinds of equipment and other things you're able to use. And choose your character class can also help you make other decisions in the following steps. Characters start at level 1 and advance up to level 20 by gaining experience. It lists it. I mean, no, it's experience based in theory, based on what's written here, and I'm okay with that. I'm a fan of experience points, and I think I've done milestone for so long. I think I'm kind of leaning back more into experience points, but that could be a topic for another video if you're curious. Hit points and hit dice. Your class determines the size of your hit dice, which in turn is used to calculate your hit points. Your hit point total represents your character's life force. Classes with bigger hit die, like a D10, are more likely to survive than those with a D6. Pretty standard stuff. This should be useful to folks who have, again, a background in Dungeons & Dragons or 5th edition. Core Fantasy System uses polyhedral dice to resolve the actions. Oh, it does mention a percentile here. So that is a thing. A proficiency bonus. So it looks like that is retaining. We're keeping that here as well. Proficiency bonus advances the same rate for every class. This including class progression. When you make a d20 check, it involves a skill, tool, or save. You have proficiency in, you add your proficiency bonus. You know what? And honestly, some of you may be saying, well, isn't that 5th edition? Well, that one is part of how this can be backwards compatible with it. But honestly, proficiency bonus is a pretty simplistic and like beautiful design choice, in my opinion. I mean, maybe you feel differently, but the fact that it works like that is you go to make a roll, it has an ability score tied to it, and then you say, am I proficient in it? Yes, I add my proficiency bonus in it. Am I proficient in it? No, I don't add my proficiency bonus. Pretty simple stuff, in my opinion, and I think that that's why it works. It's an elegant, is the word I was looking for, elegant design choice. Looks like we are keeping the standard ability scores you're used to from Dungeons & Dragons: Strength, Dex, Con, Intelligence, Wisdom, and Charisma. Wait, okay. I got excited for a second. It says, to determine your ability scores, roll 7 4d6s. But I don't think that 7's supposed to be there. I got very excited that we were going for some kooky, wild dice rolling rules, which would have been wild to see, but no. 4d6s, add up the highest 3, discarding the lower die to get your total. Do this 5 times until you have 6 ability scores between 3 and 18. Assign those numbers to wherever you wish. Add 2 to one of those scores of your choice that is 16 or below, and add 1 to one score of your choice that is 17 or below, and you're done. Interesting. So they are removing the concept of species, heritage, lineage-based ability score improvements. That's just part of character creation, and I think I also kind of respect that. So this is something that I've seen a lot of back and forth on, and I'm curious to see what your opinion is. Should your species, your biological intent, the background that you have, should that provide you statistical bonuses to your ability scores, right? Whether you are a dwarf or an elf or a human, or whether you are a bartender or a soldier, should that really impact your ability scores? Personally, I don't think so, right? Some of those things, just because I studied some things different than you studied doesn't necessarily mean that I'm, hard stat wise better at something. That might translate to a proficiency, right? There's a bow on the wall here. I've talked about it a lot in the past. I've been an archer since I was 2 years old. Does that make me, because I've done archery, does that make me more dexterous than you? No, but I might have proficiency in the use of a recurve bow or a long bow or any kind of bow for that matter. That's a proficiency thing, not a hard-coded ability thing. I think, is that translating well? I don't know. You guys let me know your thoughts. But basically what this is saying, and I also like that they're hard limiting you not getting anything too crazy, which may or may not be something you enjoy. If you like high-powered characters, obviously feel free to break that, but assign those 6 numbers in the way you want. Add 2 to your ability score of your choice that is 16 or below, and 1 to a score that is 17 or below. So if you happen to roll an 18 on your dice, you're not adding anything to it, meaning the highest ability score you can start with is an 18. Then again, so obviously if you had a 16, you could add 2 to that to make that an 18. And if you had a 17, you could add 1 to that to make that an 18, or obviously manage however you want. Higher numbers means better odds of your character with that ability. As you level up, you will have opportunities to increase those scores, but a PC can never have an ability score higher than 20. An average person has a 10 in every ability score, so these numbers emphasize how uniquely powerful adventurers are. That's always been true for 5e, but this is a good reminder. Once your scores are assigned, you use the following charts to determine your ability score modifier. I assume we're going to see the same things we have in the past. We see exactly the same thing we've seen from Dungeons and Dragons, so nothing new there. Whenever you see a particular ability score referenced in the rules, assume it means your ability score modifier. For example, a feature that reads, roll and add your strength means roll and add your strength ability modifier, not your strength ability score. Okay. Alternative starting scores. Okay. You can do a point buy. Now, they have a 32 point buy here. The point buy cost for each potential is shown below. 18 is the highest ability score you can start with, and you can't have a score lower than an 8. So we have, obviously, 0 points to get an 8. 16, you can't actually use your points to go all the way up to a 16. Or to an 18, rather, if you'd like. Spending... so in theory, you could have two 18s and all 8s if you wanted, according to this, right? So I like that they let you go higher, because I think 5th edition's point buy caps out at 15. So this, if you really want to bump something up, and I still believe based on this, you are still going to add that +2 and +1. It's not listed here, but I imagine that that's the case. So you could, put 11 points in to get something at a 16, add the 2 to it to bump it up. I assume so, because this is referencing stat generation methods. They also have a standard array, and I like that their standard array gives you a 16. 16, 15, 13, 12, 10, 8 is the standard array for this. A little more powerful than base 5e, but I'm okay with that. I like that anyway. Remember, each character class includes suggestions of the most useful way to assign your ability scores. Okay. Also, for those of you who were not pleased with Kobold Press's choice to make it be race and heritage, they have since changed that to now be lineage and heritage. So listening to the feedback from everybody, you now have a lineage and a heritage. And this represents what we'll talk about here, which is the biology of your character, as well as the upbringing, right? Once your class is decided, choose your character's lineage and heritage from the options in the lineage and heritage section presented later in this chapter. Adventurers can choose to be human, or can be one of the lineages common to the fantasy genre, like dwarf or elf. A heroic character's lineage informs certain hereditary traits, like average lifespan, size, speed, and any special adaptations like the ability to see in the dark. Okay? Again, ability scores now tied to rolling your stats, not to the lineage. You will also choose your character's heritage, which informs traits your character has because of their connection to a particular group or society. Choose a background. Background section represented later in this chapter. Your choice of backgrounds helps define your character's personal history, also called backstory. Prior to taking up the mantle of an adventurer, backgrounds give you access to skill proficiencies, talents, and other benefits like additional languages. I'm curious what talents are, so let's see. And then 6 is fill in the blanks. At this point, the game lets you you're locked in for rules. Make sure to give your character a name, decide what they look like. I also like this little checklist that we have on screen here. Double check that you've done all of the following on your character sheet. Your class and class features, including note your hit die size. If you have hit die size, wow, that was hard to say. If you have spell casting, mark your available spell slots and spells known. Skills you're proficient in, equipment or tools you're proficient in, saves you're proficient with, proficiency bonus, starting equipment. Your ability scores, your hit point total, your spell save DC and spell casting attack modifier, your lineage and heritage, including your size, your senses, your base movement speed, or additional speeds if necessary, any additional proficiencies, your background, including skill and tool proficiencies, languages, your talent, any additional starting equipment, your adventuring motivation, your luck points are set to 0. Luck points are a thing, so we'll learn about that, maybe. Your name and basic description, including height, hair, eye color, so on, and now you're ready to play. All right, so we're now on to page 6. We've got all of our background things we need to know about the game. We're now actually kind of rolling more into it, so gaining levels. Characters start at first level and advance up to level 20. By default, PCs start with 0 XP. It's up to the GM to reward XP at the end of the session, or if using a milestone system, oh, here it is, that's in here as well, to alert the players when their characters have accrued enough experience to gain a new level. Each method is described in more detail in the following section. Gaining hit points. When a PC gains a new level, they gain access to the benefits listed in their class advancement table, and they also gain 1 hit die and more hit points. To calculate these new hit points, roll the new hit die, add your constitution modifier, and add their total to your total hit points. If you don't want to roll, you can choose to just average hit die value plus your con modifier. So they've removed the 5th edition. It is average plus 1 plus constitution modifier. I've actually kind of been thinking about just instilling in some of my games, you just roll for hit dice. I think I know Critical Role does this, and I think it just adds a little something extra. Like there's that moment where, okay, everybody, we're going to roll hit dice. And I think even Critical Role films that in short form, and I think that that's just fun for content creation as well. I mean, maybe that's the YouTuber in me, but I don't know. Let me know your thoughts. If you get to increase your con as part of leveling, it's backwards compatible. No big deal there. There are 2 methods. Okay, here's your XP tracking for using experience points to level. And then it says tracking milestones. The second method for leveling characters is tracking milestones. When using milestones, players do not receive individual experience points amounts. Instead, they level up upon achieving certain narrative goals established by the GM. The milestone method is ideal for faster-paced games or player groups that are focused on storytelling as opposed to the tactical combat or dungeon delving. As a general rule, first level PCs should hit level up milestones after a single game session. Second level PCs should hit level up milestones after 2 game sessions. Third level PCs should hit level up milestones after 3 game sessions and approximately every 3 sessions thereafter. A GM may speed up or slow down milestone advancement at their discretion as suits their game. What do you think about that? Every 3 sessions, you get a level. Now, again, some of that may not make sense, like if you end halfway through a combat or end halfway through a dungeon. But that's interesting to me. I think I can get behind the level up 1 level after 1 session, level up after 2 sessions to get to 2. But then every 3 sessions, level up. I guess it might also depend on the length of your sessions, right? If your sessions are an hour, which is a very short period of time, I don't know how much you're actually going to get done. But if your sessions were 6 hours, yeah, every 3 sessions, it's 18 hours of gameplay. That's a lot. Does this seem weird? I actually thought for a second they were going to say it should be the amount of sessions equal to the level, which is also an interesting concept, right? So it would take 4 sessions for a level 4 character to level up, 5 for a level 5, and so on, to eventually, when you're level 19, it would take 19 sessions to level up. Is that too much? Probably. I don't know. This is stirring all sorts of things in my brain right now. All right, so now on to the actual meaty, crunchy part of this lineage and heritage. All right, elements of a lineage. Your lineage dictates certain fantastical lineage traits your character has because of their ancestry. Age. The age entry notes the lifespan of your particular lineage. Size, medium or small. Small characters have trouble wielding heavy weapons. Again, similar to 5e. Speed. Your speed determines how far you can move when traveling, adventuring, and fighting combat. Interesting. 2 speed values, an overland and a combat one. I like that. Elements of a heritage. Your heritage dictates certain abilities you have because of your connection to a particular group or society. Heritage includes all manner of tangible and intangible cultural elements such as architecture, works of art, folklore, traditions, language, and so on. While it's impossible to represent all the different types of heritage present in a fantasy game, each lineage includes examples. So basically, you're going to choose one that makes sense. Okay. Alignment. Part of deciding your character's traits is selecting an alignment, which broadly describes your character's moral and personal attitudes. It's a combination. It's keeping the same thing: good, neutral, evil, lawful, chaotic, neutral. Alignment hasn't really had a place in 5th edition. It exists, and I feel like it was just a legacy holdover from previous editions. Perhaps it will be more impactful in Core Fantasy Project Black Flag. Languages. All characters know the common language and another language of your choice. Some heritages give you extra languages. All right, on to the dwarf. Okay, so we know what a dwarf is. I'm not going to read. They might have specific language in here, flavor text for a dwarf. Let's see the nitty-gritty here. Age. All right, they call themselves young until they reach the age of 50. They live about 350 years, okay? They are 4 to 5 feet tall, so they are considered medium size. Their base walking speed is 25 feet. They have what they're calling night vision, superior vision. They can see in dim light within 60 feet, as if it were bright light, and darkness as if it was dim light. You can't discern color, so basically our existing dark vision. Dwarven resilience, advantage on saving throws against becoming poison and resistance to poison damage. Again, same thing. And your hit point maximum increases by 1 and 1 additional every time you level up. So they've kind of, again, condensed that down from the existing ones we have in 5e, and they give you a general overview of what the dwarf is. Again, to my point about bows before, I feel like weapon training sounds more like a heritage thing than an inborn lineage thing. All right. Heritage options. The following heritage options are the most common among dwarven adventurers. Fireforge heritage. Characters who choose this with the values of Fireforge, this is, I'm assuming, is like your crafting based, although the dwarves were the founders of the Fireforge clans to this day. These communities toil in the heat of magma, creating weapons, armor, and so on. Okay. What do they get? Alignment. They tend towards chaotic or neutral. You choose, though. You gain proficiency with glassblower's tools or smith tools. Choose one of them. Your proficiency bonus is doubled for an ability check with that. Okay. You are resistant to fire damage. You can speak, read, and write Ignin, and then Reforge. Your people have a deep connection with elemental fire. You know the mending cantrip, and you can cast it as an action. Normally, mending is a minute, assuming it's the same as 5e. However, you can use this trait to repair objects made only of metal, such as reconnecting two halves of a broken sword. You also know, common and additional language of your choice. Typical creatures of this heritage choose Dwarvish. So, I mean, right out the gate, this is... I can't speak for core fantasy, but if you were to use this in 5e, this would give you resistance to fire damage and poison damage out the gate. Again, playing in a 5e game, those are two of the most common damage types. It's pretty powerful. All right, Stone Heritage. These were more forge types. It looks like Stone Heritage is going to be more mining types. All right. Tends towards lawful or good. Oh, this proficiency with weapons, battle axe, hand axe, light hammer, warhammer. Armor training, proficiency with light and medium armor. Additionally, your speed is not reduced by wearing heavy armor, regardless of your strength score. Tool proficiencies is smith's tools, brewer's tools, mason's tools. Eye for quality. Whenever you make an ability check related to the origin of metalwork or masonry, you add your proficiency bonus to the roll. If you have proficiency in the related skill or tool, you double that. And then again, same language choices. Right, moving on to our elf. Again, elves can live up to 750 years old, medium size, 30-foot movement speed. They also have the night vision option there. Proficiency in perception, advantage on saves against being charmed. It can't be put to sleep. And then they also have trance. They don't need to sleep. Instead, they enter a meditative state, remaining semi-conscious for 4 hours. After resting in this way, you gain the same benefits other creatures do from 8 hours of sleep. So, hard coding it there, not pretty simple stuff. This is pretty standard compared to what we're used to here for elves. And then you have Cloud Heritage. These, let's see. Many accounts of the origin of elves have been spun, the deeply intertwined with the tales of magic. In a time long lost to memory, a group of elves clung fast to these tales and named themselves mages, stewards of the magical forces that coursed through the cosmos. These elves were the first of the Cloud Elf tribes, and the towers they built to study the mysteries of the skies eventually became the heart of thriving cities. Okay, cool background. Lawful or neutral type, touch of magic. Choose a school of magic for which you have cultivated an affinity. You learn a cantrip of your choice from that school of magic. When you reach third level, choose a first level spell from that same school of magic. When you reach fifth level, choose a third level spell from that school of magic. You learn these spells and can cast them at their lowest level. Once you cast one of these spells, you must finish a long rest before you can cast that spell again using this feature. Your spellcasting ability for these are Charisma, Intelligence, or Wisdom. Choose during character creation. World of Wonders, proficiency in the Arcana skill, and common and 2 additional languages, typically Elvish or Draconic. Now, one thing I don't see here, the dwarves were pretty standard and slightly tweaked, but more or less similar to what we're used to in 5e. And again, that you can see the backwards compatibility there pretty easily. Base elf, pretty standard as well. Now, these cloud elves are interesting in that they have this touch of magic, which is more than just a cantrip, giving you the options to learn you pick a school of magic and then choose 2 additional spells, a first level and a third level spell, which is interesting for skipping over second. It says you learn these and can cast them at their lowest level. I believe the intention there is because it says you learn them, that means if you have spell slots, you can cast those spells with spell slots you have. I think that's the intention based on the wording, so that's how I'm going to choose to believe it till we hear otherwise. But there you go. Because I was going to say it didn't have that, but the learn part, I think, is supposed to cover that. Then we have Grove Heritage Elves. I assume these are going to be your more woodland, natural, nature realm ones. Okay, so good or neutral. Beast Affinity. Using gestures and sounds, you can communicate simple ideas with beasts and have advantage on checks made to interact with non-hostile beasts. Climbing speed equal to your walking speed. Proficiency with long sword, short bow, longbow. And then common and a language of your choice, most often than not Elvish. Interesting to see the climbing speed. I kind of like that on an elf. I am curious if in the final way you will have different... So, like, these are the typical heritages for these lineages. But if I was a human raised by elves, could I choose cloud heritage traits because I was raised by them? I think that might be the intention. If anything, I would allow that in my game. The only thing that I would find interesting is if you're a human raised by Fireforged dwarves, you have inborn fire resistance. I think it kind of works, though. All right, so let's check out the human. What do we got? Pretty standard stuff. Speed of 30 feet. You gain proficiency in 1 skill of your choice and 1 talent of your choice. I'm assuming that's a feat replacement, but we'll check. The talent can be of any of the talent lists, but you must meet the talent's requirements. Then we have human options, which is normally a thing we don't usually get. Humans don't usually have a heritage. They're just kind of like the catch-all, end-all, be-all of everything, and they just get like a feat and some skills, typically. So nomadic heritage. Okay, so if you're more of a roaming nomad human, choose one of the neutral or lawful alignments. Resilient. You have advantage on checks or saves made to resist debilitating weather effects, such as those caused by extreme heat or cold. Additionally, when you complete a short rest, you can reduce your exhaustion level by 1. Once used, you cannot reduce your exhaustion level in this way again until you've completed a long rest. Proficiency in the survival skill, and common and a knowledge of in a language of your choice. That's really interesting. Like I said, humans don't normally get stuff like this, so it's nice to see. And then we have cosmopolitan heritage. I'm assuming this is like the city dweller, cosmopolitan type person. Chaotic or good, typical alignments. Street smarts. While in a city or other urban environments, you and your group can't become lost except by magical means. While you're in such environments, you also can't be surprised except when you are asleep or otherwise incapacitated. Worldly wisdom. When you make a check related to understanding the purpose or significance of a building, rite, or object from a culture you aren't familiar with, you add your proficiency bonus to the roll. And if you have proficiency in the skill or tool, you double that. And then common and 2 additional languages. All right, so that is all we have for our base lineage and heritages. We have A dwarf, elf, and human. So let's go back to the top and see. Elements of a heritage. Let's see. Heritage includes all manner of tangible and intangible cultural elements. While it's impossible to represent all the different ones, there are some presented here. Choose one of the heritages detailed in your character's lineage, or choose one of the heritage detailed in a different lineage if that better fits the narrative for your character. So I was right. These are ones, again, typically tied to your like the Fireforge and Stone heritage are typically for dwarves. However, if you were an elf raised by dwarves, you have that as an option, or you could use that. You could obviously min-max this however you decide you want to do it, but it also helps inform what happened with your character. Well, why are you a human with the Cloud Elf heritage? Explain how that worked. And there's a lot of narrative opportunity there. So that's pretty interesting. And again, it's funny, it goes back to my point earlier, right? Like, I was raised to be an archer, but that's not necessarily the thing I have for being a human. That's just because that's how I was raised. Okay. So backgrounds. What are backgrounds like? Your choice of backgrounds help define your character's personal history, also called backstory, prior to taking up the mantle of being an adventurer. Choosing a background, consider how it plays into the heritage and your choice of the class. Your choice of background gives you access to additional proficiencies, talents, equipments, and other benefits like additional languages. So elements of a background. Each background gives a character proficiency in 2 skills. If your character would already gain the same proficiency from their class lineage, they choose a different skill. Additional proficiencies are languages. Most come with proficiency with 1 or more tools and allow the character to learn additional languages. It comes with starting equipment and then a talent. Each background allows a character to choose 1 talent from a short list of options. These options are typically a mix from all 3 talent lists, so they represent a unique opportunity to grab a talent from a list your class may not have access to in the future. Again, I'm assuming these are like feats, but we'll see. And then adventuring motivation. You also have options here for customizing. You might want to tweak some elements. To customize a background, you can replace 1 talent list with any other, choose any 2 skills, choose a total of 2 proficiencies, tool proficiencies or language from the sample backgrounds. You can either use the equipment package or make up your own. If you spend coin, you can't take the same equipment package suggested from your class. Finally, choose 1 adventuring motivation, and then we'll see what that looks like. So here's a scholar. Okay. 2 skills from the following: Arcana, History, Nature, Religion. 2 proficiencies, 2 additional languages of your choice, or proficiency with 1 tool or vehicle relevant to your field of study. And we have a little bit of a background equipment here: ink, knife, quill, so on. And then a talent. As a scholar, you have spent time researching particular academic subjects as at an institute of learning or under the tutelage of a knowledgeable teacher. Choose a talent from the following list: polyglot, school specialization, or trade skills. And then we have a D8 adventuring motivation, right? Adventuring supplies me with a coin I need to further my research. Adventuring may lead me to answers I desperately seek. Stuff like that. We have a soldier. So it looks like we really only have the 2 options for background: soldier or scholar. And kind of getting the brainy type and the brawny type. All right, so soldier. 2 skills from animal handling, athletics, medicine, or survival. Gain proficiency with land or water vehicles and 1 tool of your choice. We have equipment, symbol of rank, pack of playing cards, common clothes. And our talent here, we have armor training, combat casting, or combat conditioning. And our adventuring motivation: adventuring is a way to support myself after being dishonorably discharged from the military service. Is the return to action I've craved since my retirement, etc. Now, talents. Talents represent the specific ways an adventurer has improved over the course of their adventures. Talents are divided into 3 categories: magic talents, martial talents, and technical talents. Your class, so again, we have mage, you have your skill-based people will be your technical types, your bards, your rogues. Martial will be your heavy hitter, melee type people or weapon users, and magic will be magic. Your class typically determines which talent list you have access to. Talents are gained in 2 main ways. When a character chooses their background during character creation, they select 1 talent from a list of options provided in the background. When a character class grants an improvement, which we don't, again, have classes, so I'm assuming this is whenever you would get, at certain levels, they can choose to increase an ability score by 2, 2 different ability scores by 1, or choose a talent from their class list as has access to, assuming the character meets any necessary prerequisites. So it seems like if we're going to keep the concept of ability score improvements similar to what we have in 5e, that's what we have here. They're just called improvements as opposed to ability score improvements or feats. It's an improvement, and the option is ability score by 2, 2 by 1, or a talent. Now, it does seem like we are going to be hard limiting some of these talents potentially to a list for the different classes. At least that's how it reads to me, which is why it also said that certain backgrounds might give you access to talents from a list you would not normally be able to choose from. So again, we only have a snapshot in time, not including, I'm assuming we're going to get those 6 talents that were represented here, and then again, more will come down the road. Magic talents. Your most costly talent, your most magic talents affect a character's spellcasting abilities, but they also include features that strengthen the mind and defend against harmful magics. So combat casting. The ability to cast spells is the prerequisite. You gain the following benefits. You automatically succeed on con saves you make to maintain your concentration on a spell if the DC is lower than your spellcasting DC. Interesting. So, sort of like a better version of Warcaster, but yeah, you automatically succeed on a con save if the save is lower than your spellcasting DC, which I think kind of makes a little bit of sense. And this is again combat casting, right? You're somebody in combat here. You're familiar with casting spells in combat. That kind of makes sense, right? When a hostile creature first enters a space within 5 feet of you or provokes an opportunity attack from you, you can use your reaction to cast a cantrip. And you can use a shield or weapon you are holding as a spellcasting focus as normal. So again, a sort of improved, in my mind, version of Warcaster. Elemental Savant. I think this is probably going to be like Elemental Adept, right? The ability to cast at least one spell that does damage. You have Acid, Cold, Fire, Lightning, or Thunder. Whenever you cast a spell that deals damage, you can decide to convert the damage type of that spell. Oh, no, wait, this is way better. Whenever you cast a spell that deals damage, you can decide to convert the damage type of that spell to your chosen elemental damage type. You must decide to convert the damage type when you declare you are casting the spell. Additionally, when you roll damage for a spell that naturally uses your chosen elemental damage type, not spells you convert to your chosen type, you can reroll any damage results of a 1 and must take the new results. You can select this multiple times. Interesting. Okay, I like this a lot. So I say I have Fireball and Lightning Bolt, and I take Elemental Savant Fire. I could turn my Lightning Bolt into a Fire... Well, this is a poorly named one because Firebolt's already a spell, but you get my point. Firebolt, which shoots... Instead of doing the same damage in the same range as a Lightning Bolt, I have converted that to do fire damage instead. And it also says choose an elemental damage type. Whenever you cast a spell that deals damage, you can change it to your chosen type. So in theory, if I have a spell that does something other than elemental damage, again, I can't speak to it, but we'll use 5e terminology, psychic, necrotic, radiant, force, I could convert any of those spells to the elemental type I chose because it only quantifies spells that deal damage, not spells that deal elemental damage, just spells that deal damage. So if you have a class or something that keys off of the ability to cast spells in such a way that if they're impacted by a certain element, you can do more things with them, this would work. And then again, if you cast a spell that's of the element that it is in its base form, right? So if I converted my lightning bolt to a fire bolt, I couldn't re-roll the damage dice if they rolled as a 1, but if I cast a fireball, and, casting something in its base elemental form without changing it, I can re-roll the results of a 1 on the dice, which is pretty cool to see. I actually really like that a lot. Mental fortitude. Through rigorous mental exercises, you have fortified yourself against mind-altering effects. Once per long rest, when you fail an intelligence, wisdom, or charisma save, you can choose to re-roll the save and take the new result. You must declare your intention to re-roll before the results of the saves are resolved. Okay, so I got a little bit of a problem with this, so let's read that again. Once per long rest, when you fail, so you've already failed an intelligence, wisdom, or charisma save, you can choose to re-roll the save and take the new result. You must declare your intention to re-roll before the results of the save are resolved. How can you do that if the thing is when you fail, right? So the results of the save are already chosen by the first sentence there, right? I think if you I get what they're going for, but it's worded poorly, right? So if I fail, I can re-roll and must take the new result. Why would I not take the new result? I failed, right? So I think you could probably just strike that second sentence and you're fine. Because, yeah, based on that, I've already learned that I failed. Unless you're saying, like, the concept is based on how bad it is, right? So if I fail the save and like someone's like, okay, well now you're mind controlled, and I'll be like, actually no, I want to re-roll it. If it's to prevent that, I get it. But I think you just strike the second sentence and you're fine. All right. If you're affected by an ongoing spell or magical effect due to failing an intelligence, wisdom, or charisma save, you can repeat the save at the end of each of your turns, ending the effect on a success, even if the ongoing effect would not allow you to do so. That is amazing. That is a fantastic ability because you could shut down some combats completely with a spell that fails an intelligence, wisdom, or charisma save. I really like this a lot. Like I said, that first bullet needs a little bit of help. Maybe again, just strike the second sentence, but I love the second ability. All right, school specialization. This is Celeste Design is the lead designer behind this. I see a lot of what's going on here. We've had long talks about older editions and things we liked, so I'm seeing some of that make its way in here, which is good. I think what we're doing is good here. The ability to cast spells, choose a school of magic, abjuration, conjuration, divination, enchantment, evocation, illusion, necromancy, transmutation. Those are all staying. Whenever you cast a spell from that school that requires you to make an attack roll, add a +1 to the roll. Whenever you cast a spell from that school that requires a target to make a save versus your spell save DC, the DC increases by 1. If you use a spell book to cast your spells, the golden time you spend copying a spell of that school into your spellbook is halved. You can take this multiple times. This is amazing. It gives a wizard or somebody who's focusing on a specific type of thing the ability to really customize it. If you want to be a jack of all trades and take multiple school specializations, you can. I like this. I think this is done well. I think everything here, you might remove the concept of like maybe even now allow something like if you had a Cobalt Press's version of an abjuration wizard might actually be significantly better in that aspect because like now you don't have to put things like the halved magic. It's not something tied to the class. It's a talent that you could take. I really like this. The only thing I'm going to say is I hope that there's, on top of the existing spells that we have, we get more that require you to make an attack roll because there's not a lot in 5e. Even with all of the subsequent expanded spells, you're looking at, I think, sub 20 attack roll spells, and most of those are cantrips. I could be wrong. That may have changed, but that's where we were a couple years ago. All right, so that's all of our magic talents. Let's move into our martial talents. Armor training. You gain proficiency with light armor. If you're proficient with light armor, when you select this, you gain proficiency with medium armor and shields. If you're proficient with medium armor and shields when you take this, you get proficiency with heavy armor. You can take this multiple times. Armored combatant, which is if you're proficient with heavy armor. While you are wearing armor, you gain a +1 bonus to AC, and each instance of bludgeoning, piercing, slashing damage that you take from a non-magical attack is reduced by your proficiency bonus. Again, that only is triggering if you have proficiency with heavy armor. Combat conditioning. We had combat casting, now we have combat conditioning. Your HP maximum increases by 2 for each level you currently have. Whenever you gain a level, your new hit die is... Whoa, hold on. I thought this was just going to be like a tough replacement. Your HP maximum increases by 2 for each level you currently have. So when you take this, it increases by 2. It doesn't sound like it goes retroactive based on how I'm reading that. Let's take a look. Whenever you gain a level, including the level at which you gain this talent if applicable, your new hit die is one size larger than your class typically grants. For example, a wizard with this talent would take a D8 for their new hit die instead of a D6. If you already use a D12 hit die when you gain this talent, it has no effect. All right, hand-to-hand, this is for your monk type people. Proficiency with unarmed strikes. If you're a medium creature, your unarmed strikes deal bludgeoning plus a D6 plus your strength mod. Small's a D4. You have advantage on ability checks made to initiate or escape grapples. And then lastly, technical talents. Polyglot, learn 3 languages of your choice, none of which are common. Advantage on charisma ability checks made to interact with non-hostile creatures for whom any of those 3 languages is their primary language. And whenever you make an ability check related to understanding the meaning of verbal or written language you don't know, you add your proficiency bonus to the roll. If you have a relevant skill or tool, add double. And then trade skills, gain proficiency with 1 skill and 1 type of tool or vehicle to your chosen profession. Alternatively, gain proficiency with 2 types of tools or vehicles relevant to your chosen profession. And provided you have access to the necessary equipment and customers, you can spend a day plying your trade and expect to be paid 2 GP, 2 gold pieces, or paid with goods and services of equivalent value. You can take this multiple times. It's nice to have an opportunity to use your mundane professional or trade skills to make money and have it quantified in an ability. Gotta say, I'm a big fan of what we're seeing here. Now, I will admit, and I have seen the comments, a lot of people are like, well, now that they're making it compatible with 5th edition, I don't want anything to do with it. And I don't feel that way personally. I think 5th edition is there are issues. I think we can all agree there are issues with 5th edition, but a lot of what it did was done well. The concept of advantage, disadvantage is a very clean solution to multiple numerical values added. But I like a lot of what I see here. I think it gives a lot of fluidity. I like tying the kind of ability score increases to just the rolling of the dice, different options for character creation out the gate. We have a couple of background options. I like the concept of the lineage separating from the heritage, so you can bounce those around. And I really like what I'm seeing in form of these talents, which again seem to be a replacement for Dungeons and Dragons feat. I don't know. I'm a big fan. I'm curious. Like I said, I know the folks at Cobalt Press definitely check out these videos, so feel free to leave comments down below for any things you'd like to see more of or questions or you have. Maybe we can get them addressed. Who knows? Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to stay tuned as I will eventually be filling out the playtest survey for this, covering this as well as the constant Black Flag Fridays as well. So thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.